Nightmare photo of Mueller just surfaced with Russian he's prosecuting Manafort over. I've only been catching snippets of the Paul Manafort trial. From what I understand, the judge has little patience with Mueller's team and has set a very high bar for conviction. The trial is now in full swing and is purportedly not going well for Manafort. He is being charged with fraud and tax evasion among other things. Crimes that pretty much occurred years ago, long before he was on President Trump's campaign team. Mueller could not get Manafort on the charge of collusion with the Russians or get him to flip on President Trump, so he nailed Manafort with process crimes and got Rick Gates to flip on Manafort. It reminds me a great deal of how the FBI ensnared Al Capone. Gates has admitted to a number of things, including an affair, embezzling funds from Manafort, and assisting in tax evasion, as I understand it. It makes it pretty clear, at least from his testimony, that he assisted Manafort in breaking the law. Manafort is Trump's former campaign manager. Other charges being leveled at him include money laundering, failure to file reports of financial accounts overseas, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent. Most of the charges have to do with work he did for former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, a pro-Russia candidate. I might just point out that Manafort was during that time doing business with Tony and John Podesta, who are Democrats and lobbyists as well. However, they won't be prosecuted, it would seem. Rumor has it that Tony Podesta may have been given immunity by Mueller. We'll see. Mueller's team has tried to use Manafort's wealth and his ties to Russia to convict him in the courtroom. This has drawn the ire of the presiding judge. The prosecution has introduced as evidence a loan from Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska and financial accounts abroad controlled by Konstantin Viktor, who prosecutors allege has ties with Russian intelligence. The problem is that those don't seem to be illegal acts. Remember that Manafort was not with Trump for very long and was introduced to his team by establishment Republicans in an effort to help Trump when it became apparent they would have to get along. Trump fairly quickly dumped Manafort and went with Kellyanne Conway, who led his campaign to victory. Trump is not a politician, and he seems to usually go astray when he takes advice from longtime Republicans who don't understand or desire what he is trying to accomplish. It's a small world out there, and a nightmare photo has surfaced of Mueller with Yanukovych during his time at the FBI. Awkward. From the Conservative Tribune. For fans of the theory that President Donald Trump is somehow a puppet of the Kremlin, Mr. Yanukovych figures heavily. In terms of the satellite regimes Vladimir Putin has tried to set up in post-Soviet states, Yanukovych's was one of the most transparent. Before he was deposed as part of the Ukrainian Revolution in 2014, he was as reliable a pro-Russia politician as any. It's ironic, then, that Robert Mueller is the individual whose special counsel investigation is tackling the case. Regardless of how you feel about Mr. Podesta and his promotion of various conspiracy theories, the point still bears making: Mueller worked with Yanukovych during his time as director of the FBI. The meeting in Kiev took place 2 months after the Boston Marathon bombing, according to the Daily Beast, and centered around counterterrorism operations. Ukrainian-American cooperation efficiently develops in many spheres of mutual interest, Yanukovych said during Mueller's trip, according to a Facebook post from the time by the Ukraine embassy. Your visit is very interesting for Ukraine, and relations between our law enforcement bodies have established good traditions of cooperation and communication in the course of 20 years. I am confident that there is a potential for further broadening of cooperation. At the meeting, the Ukrainian leader said that he was very close to signing an agreement with the European Union. There are some preparations left, but I hope that we will fulfill everything and sign the agreement, Yanukovych said during the meeting, according to the Daily Beast. The agreement, which the Daily Beast describes as a key focus of Paul Manafort's lobbying work for Yanukovych, was never signed. This doesn't mean much all by itself. But if Mueller is pushing guilt by association, this goes to conduct his own. The FBI was working with Ukraine at the time concerning anti-terrorism efforts. Regardless, the optics are terrible here. This is the guy who Manafort's being charged with lobbying for in a case many Trump supporters feel is being used to try and tie the administration to the Kremlin. And you have Mueller glad-handing with him and beaming over this guy just 5 years ago under the Obama administration. Everyone already knew that Yanukovych was a Russian stooge, but Mueller didn't seem to have an issue with it then. He does now because of President Trump. For this alone, Mueller should have recused himself from the investigation. On Monday, the judge in Manafort's case told the lead prosecutor Greg DeAndres that he didn't want to hear any more speculation about why oligarchs might have wanted to pay the lobbyist for his advice. He instead advised him to go to the heart of the matter. The judge has frequently done this, and I heard this morning that one of the prosecutors got so upset he was crying over it. That hasn't been verified yet, but you get the point. Judge, we have been at the heart of the matter, Andres said, exasperated. That's the problem and why so many Americans don't trust Mueller's team or this investigation. A photo surfaced